Hey guys, we're talking about seller concessions in Arizona, how to use them without leaving money on the table. So, seller concessions in Arizona can cover thousands of dollars of your closing costs, but most buyers never ask for them correctly. Here's how. So, I'm Chelsea Anderson with the Anderson Signature team at Keller Williams Realty Phoenix, and we're going to dive into some East Valley real estate updates and Phoenix area tips and tricks for using seller concessions when you're buying a house. So the first thing that comes up in almost every transaction right now are going to be seller concessions. It's one of those terms that means different things to different people depending on which side of that conversation that you're on. So today we're going to break it down really for our buyers. Sellers, of course, pay attention to this so you understand what this actually means. But depending on where you're sitting and what your cash position is, seller concessions are one of the main tools buyers are using to increase their affordability factor on all of the homes that we have for sale right now. So, what are these seller concessions, you might ask? Let's actually figure out what we're talking about here. So, seller concessions, also called seller contributions, also called closing cost assistance or closing cost allowance, is when the seller is agreeing to contribute a certain dollar amount or percentage of the price to the buyer to cover their title fees, their lender fees. Sometimes those can be HOA fees, sometimes that can be home warranty, sometimes it's homeowners insurance. It can be a variety of different things. Most often right now, we're seeing some sort of rate buy down piece to that. So here's what that might look like. A buyer makes an offer for $500,000 on a house and they ask for $8,000 to $12,000 in a seller concession. So if the seller agrees, the buyer is paying a $500,000 price and in turn getting those seller concessions back. So it's never going to be cash that you walk away from, but it's just going to be less cash that you have to bring to the table to close. So the seller would net, say it's a $10,000 concession, the seller's net offer then would be $490,000 instead of $500, but the price will stay at $500 and the buyer gets that $10,000 benefit then. So they're 100% standard. We saw them on about 57% of our closings last month in July. And so they're just written straight into the contract, disclosed to all parties, and then it's handled straight through escrow. So here's one of the suggestions that we use most often and how buyers should use them. So when you think about it strategically, the money that you need to buy a house is going to be your down payment and then your closing costs. And so your down payment, you do have to, come up with that. There's grants and down payment assistance, things like that, if that's a piece that you need some help with. But the closing cost piece does not necessarily need to be cash out of your pocket. That can come direct from the seller from the price of the house that you're paying. And so each year we've kind of seen it hold at about a $10,000 median concession across the board. And we're just starting to see that tick up. This last month, it was actually $10,200 was our median. So something to kind of pay attention to. So those concessions, again, they can go towards your escrow fees, your title fees, your recording fees, your title insurance policies, your lender origination fees, buying down your rate so you can go from a 6.5, maybe down to a 6, maybe even something into the 5s if you want to throw enough money at it. Maybe that would go towards a temporary rate buy down. So you could go from 6.5 down to a 5.5 this year and then hit your 6.5 next year, maybe. There's different ways that we can structure that, but it's basically going to save you a $10,000 piece from being the cash that you need to close. And so here's the key strategic point for buyers. It's often better to ask for concessions than to ask for the price reduction of the same amount. A price reduction can affect the appraised value if there's a lender involved, things like that. If we're getting into a little bit of a tricky situation on what those values can be, we can certainly talk about all of those things. But if the price is there and the comps are there, why not come in after that concession and push for those terms? So on those concessions, getting that money is going to improve your cash to close position. If a house, for instance, needs some work that needs to get done on it, that cash can then be used towards, upgrading that kitchen the way that you want it upgraded and done rather than asking the seller to do something for you too. So depending on the loan amount, there are certain limits as to how much of a concession you can ask for. FHA loans, you can ask for up to 6%. A lot of conventional stuff you can only ask for if you're an investor or not. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 3. It really just depends on the loan structure that you're using, but there's different ways for you to be able to get that. And so one of the things that we really, really want to do is when we negotiate for those concessions, we don't want to leave any of that money on the table. We want to make sure that we're spending as much of that allowance as we possibly can. I hate to see that. I mean, if it's on my listing, I love to see it when the agent messes up. But if we're on the buy side, we are not going to mess up. If we've negotiated a $10,000 concession, we're not just using $8,000 of it. We are going to find a way to use as much of that $10,000 as is humanly possible, whether that's prepaying homeowners insurance for 2 years or prepaying HOA dues or whatever we can finagle to 2 years of home warranty. Whatever we can finagle and get away with, we are maxing out whatever we have negotiated. And there's no way we're leaving any of that money on the table. So, one of these things that is really going to be crucial is talking through with your lender how much your concessions are going to be, what they feel a rate buy down would cost, so that we can use those real numbers when we're negotiating your offer to make sure that we're hitting the mark. So I see that mistake a lot as well, where people are just guessing at what those closing costs are going to be and either way undershoot it or way overshoot it. And then that's going to mess with, their client's deal as well. So we want to make sure that we're communicating with that lender to understand what those real fees are going to be so that we can go in and make sure that we are not letting any of that go. So once, you get to that point in your offer process, we would love to help you into the real estate market. This is one of the best times to buy. A lot of sellers are negotiating. They're doing a lot of repairs. We're getting a lot of concessions. We're getting a little bit better on pricing, things like that. So if you want to talk about what it looks like to buy your next home or even your first home right now, please reach out. If you want to understand how all of this gets structured into an offer, of course, send me an email, Chelsea, CHELSEA at andersonsignature.com. Or feel free to give me a call, shoot me a text at 602-748-6136. And again, I'm Chelsea Anderson with the Anderson Signature team at Keller Williams Realty Phoenix. Drop the word concessions down below in the comments and we'll walk you through what a realistic concession looks like for your specific price range, loan type, and area that you're looking. So of course, subscribe for more of this type of content, real strategy in real estate in our Phoenix and Southeast Valley real estate market every week and every month. Thanks.